Hey everybody, it's Voitko Studios again. Today we're going to be playing... some Minecraft. And basically, my project here is to build an ancient city. So we're going to see exactly how that turns out. Just making sure that everything's okay here. Because for some reason it's not showing me as going live. There it is. Nope. This should not be it. Oh, for heaven's sakes. Okay. This should not be it. Okay, so the first order of business, excuse me, is to decide where we're going to build. Oh, I should have turned off generate structures because I don't want... I mean, these open plains seem pretty good. Oh, I forgot I have creative turned on. Hey Bella, how's it going tonight? Hope you're doing well. Hope your homework's going well. 3-day weekend, so hopefully not too much homework. Let's see, I like this island because what I'm going to do, I've just decided, is exploit this natural bay. I find that the ancient Romans tended to do a lot of, work with natural bays and things like that, so we're going to turn this into a little fortress, and it's going to be like Greco-Roman, loosely based. It's not going to be anything like super duper historically accurate, but, we'll see. So we're going to have this be a basic fortress, and then we're going to build the city out from here. But the first order of business here is to get ourselves... Where are you? Because this dude need to go. Because I don't have world edit or cheats and stuff. I don't know how to use cheats right now. And I'm just kind of in the mood to build. So, oh. Good fam. I'm doing good, fam. Does it smell like updog in here? No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, I'm fine. Just finished a bunch of homework myself, because my classes started this week. So, now I am playing some of this to decompress a little bit before time for bed, which is almost proper English, but not quite. Burn everything to the ground. I don't know if flowers catch fire, but we'll see. Do. I cannot say I agree, only because I really enjoy writing, but I totally get the not wanting to do homework. I spent a good, I'd say a good hour of my time earlier this evening just completely procrastinating and not doing anything at all. Looking up weird stuff like whether or not, whether or not primates have a swimming reflex. Because I saw a picture of a dog doing that dog thing that dogs do when they let me think of that. Doing the thing that dogs and cats do. You know, when you drop an animal like that in water, or even if you hold them above water a little bit, they will tend to start swimming, even if they're floating up, if they're being held above the water. And so I was wondering, you know, well, why do humans have to learn to swim? And it led me down this little rabbit hole of swimming reflexes, and turns out humans and some other primates do have a swimming reflex, but we actually lose our swimming reflex by the time we are, by the time we're like a certain age. Let's see. Ancient fortress. How about really? Alright, so what I'm really kind of basing this off of is the Castel dell'Ovo in Naples. As illustrating fortress fortification in Naples, the island of Megaride was where Greek colonists from Cumae found the original nucleus of the city in the 6th century BC. Megaride. Yeah, organizing my room. That was honestly one of my go-to things. That's how I knew that I was really procrastinating, because that's like the last thing I ever want to do. And so when I find myself cleaning my room, that's how I know. Well, we're in a pickle here because this homework is not going to be getting done anytime soon. All right, this is just showing me Herculaneum and Pompeii, which is not what I wanted. Actually, that's not a bad idea. Maps.google.com. Naples, Italy. Satellite. This isn't really helping me either, turns out. But basically it looks like it's some sort of large platform. So I really should have turned off the... Can I turn off the setting? Always day. That's just easier to deal with right now. Let's go from here. Maybe this isn't the best rock to use. What other rocks do we have? I guess cobblestone makes the most sense, because... Oh boy, am I really going to start doing this now too? Because, ooh. Ooh. Underwater cave, yes please. Maybe we should start with something simpler. Tell you what, let's figure out what we really want to do with all of this before we start digging gigantic... Before we start digging gigantic trenches and trying to dig foundations all the way down to dirt, to stone. Yeah, Bella, it's a difficult thing. Writing, well, let me put it this way. Writing is not difficult. It's the actually sitting down to do it that's difficult. And if I've learned anything over the course of my life, it's that at a certain point, the only way you can do it is just to sit down and do it. Even though it's like awful and you hate it and you're like, oh, this is the worst, I'm writing absolute garbage. That's like the best thing that you can actually do for yourself as a writer. And especially if you ever want to get into writing as a career. I wish I knew where it was, but by that I mean I wish I could find it right now and just send it to you. But there's this really amazing essay called Shitty First Drafts that I read a really long time ago, almost 10 years ago now. And basically it was all about writer's block, not writer's block, but just the fear of the blank page and how that's so paralyzing. But then what you really need to remember is that all first drafts are shitty. And I feel like a lot of times for writers, I don't know if this is true about you and if this is maybe not what you meant, but for me, I find that when I'm writing stuff, I sort of start thinking, "Oh God, this is really awful. You know, I'm a terrible writer. I'm a hack. Why am I even bothering with this?" And I forget that even the best of the best. This whole essay is about like these testimonials from like really famous authors talking about how you know oh gee, when I was writing, I don't know, Catcher in the Rye is a bad example because I hate that book, but you know, pick a card, any card. It's like Great Gatsby. I think there was something there from F. Scott Fitzgerald talking about how much he was like, I could not stand that book. I hated it. It was never finished because, to him, at least, not that it was never finished, never published, but that F. Scott Fitzgerald was like, oh, I hate this. I really shouldn't have released it, but my editor needed something or something like that. And it really changed my perspective on writing, and it made me realize, that you gotta. It's like exercise. I know that there are people who like running, but they're weird, and I'm not going to talk about them. But if you want to learn to jog or learn to ride a bicycle or learn to play the piano, if you want to be able to do any of that well, you have to do it, and you have to like make yourself sit down and do it, and it's hard, but you got to sort of promise yourself that you're gonna. I don't know. I'm rambling. But if you ever find a chance have a chance to find that essay and read it, please do, because it really did completely change my understanding of writing as a craft and as a career. At the very least, if you can't do that, then your room will be clean. You know what I mean? And well organized. So, worst case scenario. So I'm basically just trying to build up a wall, a main wall for the lower body of the fortress. And then I'm going to work on what buildings are going to go on it after the fact, because I kind of, I don't know, I get those vibes from the Castel de Lovo, where they basically were working with what kind of foundation they had, building up from there, and then once they had a good solid structure, then they kind of went with the rest of the stuff. So do do do. So, yeah, I don't know what else to talk about right at this moment, but I don't want to bore you all to tears, so I don't know, maybe not talking is better than just making stuff up. That is a good thing. Reading is the best way to, almost practice writing, aside from obviously the actual act of writing itself. But reading is super duper important if you want to get good at, or get better at writing, because that's how you learn everything about the craft, what structure looks like, and what works and what doesn't in terms of pacing, and it also opens up your mind to new ways of structuring a story, or dialogue. I think dialogue is very important. I don't know if you write fiction mostly or if you write poetry, but when it comes to, I'm more of a playwright myself. That's sort of where that's my bailiwick, so to speak. Reading is important for vocabulary. It's important for stuff like that, and then for dialogue especially, the way that things flow, the way that characters speak or introduce themselves. If you love reading, then you're already halfway there, basically. Let's see. I like that. That's cool. And I like that too. Okay. I'm satisfied. Now what I'm going to do here is grab myself a shovel. Just because, even though it makes no difference in creative mode, it's fun. I should really figure out how to do things like world edit, though, because even though it's not a problem right at this moment, it will probably become more important as time goes on, because that was sort of one of the things I ran into when I tried to do this kind of thing on my own. I was playing on Xbox, and I was having fun, but at a certain point it was like, okay, well, I'm kind of tired of all this tedious busy work, and I was definitely spoiled. I used to Bella, I definitely like that idea. One of my specialties on the server that I used to work on was recreating original buildings. I did Union Station from New York City. I did Falling Water in Pennsylvania, the Frank Lloyd Wright House. My main goal for this specific playthrough is to create a city, and something inspired by ancient Rome and ancient Greece. So unfortunately that doesn't quite fit in with my goals for this particular city, but there will definitely be monuments and temples and things like that in this city. so they won't necessarily be specifically the Statue of Liberty or the Tower of Pisa, just because those are different time periods. But there will definitely be stuff of that ilk. We're going to be making some temples. We're building this fortress right now, so we're going to have a lot of cool stuff to look at eventually. I promise you that, at least. One of the things that I was able to do as I was a moderator on an old Minecraft server called Witchcraft, which I'm pretty sure is no longer operational, mostly because I know the owner. Actually, you met her too, Bella. That was Killer Pony. She currently is the owner of Witchcraft, but not much has been done with it just because the introduction of, what is it called? Realms really messed with a lot of the, basically kind of screwed over a lot of the economy, the economic aspects of the servers, and how they made a living. So, anyway, not to be all salty about it, the point that I was trying to make is that I used World Edit a lot, which is a lot of tools that allow you to do stuff like copy and paste, and let you sort of generate structures with different bricks. And I very quickly got spoiled with that, because boy did it make building stuff, larger structures, easier. Because right now, obviously, I'm doing everything by hand, and that is not nearly as quick. Also filling stuff in, so I know that I'm planning on putting pretty much gravel, maybe gravel, maybe not, I'll see. But I definitely need to put some filler into this before I add to the superstructure, and that's going to be a pain in the neck because I'm going to have to put in all of the things manually. Do. This would be, like I said, this would be a lot quicker if I was using World Edit, but I am not. I'm not even sure. If I'm able to. The other thing, Bella, about the monuments and stuff is that I feel like I'd be more on board with that idea if we could find some monuments that haven't been done to death, because a lot of stuff has just been done over and over and over and over again. And I think for me, at least, part of the whole appeal of Minecraft is to sort of play with new ideas and being creative, which, granted, it's not that it doesn't take a lot of creativity to recreate something. It's more that, I think there are only a certain number of ways you can build the Statue of Liberty or the Empire State Building in Minecraft. Actually, I'm going to raise this because this is going to be part of the entry into the seaport. Do. Ugh, that's going to bother me. Okay. Water. Bucket of cod. Ugh. I have been away from the game for too long, clearly, because I have no idea what this bucket of cod business is. It's really hard to do detailed builds like that, I have to say, because I've a couple of times tried to build my own house, and it's actually surprisingly difficult to do something like a house, especially like a single family home, just because the level of detail that's offered by the bricks in the game is generally tailored to what's it called? Tailored to larger structures. So it's different from, if like I'm doing this right now, it's it's a larger structure with, pretty rough edges, and the thick walls here make sense. But obviously, a lot of family homes in the United States are balloon frame. I don't even know if you're in the United States, Bella, but even outside of the United States, a lot of homes are made with materials such as balloon frame, which is wood frame, or brick, and so walls don't tend to be insanely thick. Plus, there's just so little furniture that unless you're using a lot of the mods that, or a lot of the sort of mod sets, resource packs, you're not going to be able to do a lot with furnishings. I have seen some really cool stuff, but, it can only go so far. Especially if this challenge was made several years ago, because the selection of materials has certainly improved over the last couple of years, but even 3 or 4 years ago, even 1 year ago, the selection of materials was far more limited. So in other words, I can relate to what your brother went through with that challenge. It's not easy. I think the first thing that I built for the server that I was on was just like a Victorian, well, supposedly Victorian kind of gingerbread, not gingerbread like gingerbread, but a Victorian style, one of those really pretty houses with a lot of detail work. And let me tell you, I got the basic structure of the house fine, but pretty much everything else was just awful looking. One of the ideas I have had for something like this is to do what I call like Minecraft archaeology, which would basically mean, in this case specifically, building this city out and then sort of disastering it, or not every Roman city was subject to a disaster like Pompeii or Herculaneum, but subjecting it to some kind of incident where it gets abandoned and then burying it underneath a new city. I don't know if you have the option to upload maps the way you do. Underground houses are my jam, too. One of my jams. I built one on this island that I loved that had a big glass skylight, and I was really proud of that. That was when I only knew how to play on Xbox, though. Walls are a pain, and I think that that's actually one of my go-to structures for building a quick shelter, especially when I'm in a survival mode and I'm trying to figure out exactly where I want to build something. I find that 90% of the time I'm going to go through with a shovel and just dig a hole in the ground, plop a door on it, plop a bed down, and that's going to be the end of that. That way I can, limit the use of resources, limit how much time things take, and, continue exploring the map to find where I want to build whatever it is that I was going to build. And I also find that this particular week I've been doing a lot of off-schedule streams. The main reason I started my schedule was because I know that that's one of the important things for building an audience, is to come back regularly at specific times. But I also didn't want to just limit myself to that. So, when the mood strikes me and when I have time, I also like to do some other streams. I'm also looking at ways to do more streams with, especially with Killer Pony, because she and I have been trying to get together and play video games for an audience for quite some time. And now that I've started playing here on Twitch, I feel like I have a decent way of actually starting that up. So sort of the storyline here is that the base of the fortress that we're building right now with the cobblestone was put in by the Greeks, and then the upper portion, the superstructure, will have been sort of put in by the Romans after they took back the land. Do. I don't know, maybe they should have a little bit of a farm section up here, because I feel like this I don't know which direction I'm facing right now. Ooh. Do. This brings back memories of older builds, having to clear all this dirt by hand. I might see about trying to install World Edit before I play this again, because I'm sure this is not fun for for anyone. Certainly not for me. Boy, why am I'm getting really tense. I need to relax. The quick clicking action is causing me to tense up my muscles, which is not good for me. So I'm thinking, for strategic purposes, keeping the I know I'm pretty tired, so I completely missed what you're referencing with that, but I I am sure I am sure that works. I just am not sure what you were talking about. I'm sorry. Yes. Yes, we are, unfortunately, we are building a wall, and unfortunately, it is meant to keep people out. But hopefully, that is the extent of the similarities between myself and that guy. But I mean, I must admit, this is a magnificent wall. It's like the best wall. It's going to be so good, and Mexico is definitely paying for this wall, so, you know, I guess that's another similarity. So this is part of why I would like to get World Edit, because when I'm building, even though I know I specifically said earlier that these don't need to be so completely accurate, but it bothers me when walls don't go down to a solid foundation. So a big part of my time in creating a lot of these builds is spent basically just digging foundation, which is not even necessary in Minecraft within the game. But I like to do it. One of the things World Edit allows you to do that's nice is it allows you to replace specific blocks. So if you have a selection and it contains, for instance in this case, stone, and then also sand and dirt, then you can replace all the stone, or I should say you can replace all the sand, but leave the stone untouched, and that way I can get my nice foundation walls without having to fuss as much. Anyway, so let's see. We need some wheat. I do live in the U.S. I live just outside Washington, D.C., in fact, so I'm kind of more closer to the action than I'd like to be. Let's see, so we can do... We definitely need some wheat. Then we can do potatoes and radishes. No, potatoes, carrots, beetroots. Actually, we could just do those three together. Texas is stupid, but that's not true. Texas isn't stupid. I've been to Texas a couple of times, and I've found that the people there are really, really... the people there are stupid. No, that's not what I meant. Oh my god, I'm sorry. It's very late, and I'm very tired. I think everywhere you go on a community scale, most people are like super nice and friendly and open about stuff. It's when you get on the sort of macro scale, once you start getting bigger than like your local neighborhood, that's when you start to have problems because people tend to lose perspective. Uh, and I think that's where you end up with big kind of issues like, you know, racism and sexism and stuff like that. I mean, obviously those things exist within communities. I'm not saying they don't. But I think if you take just about any person who is racist or sexist or things like that, I think a lot of that has to do with a lack of exposure and a lack of understanding. It comes from ignorance. And I'm not trying to say, you know, that, I don't know. The point being, I think people know very well what they need in their lives. And I think they know very well what works for them in their lives, what has worked for them and what does work for them. And what ends up happening is when you get on, even on a statewide scale, but definitely on a national scale, what ends up happening is that you lose perspective because what works for someone in Dallas, Texas, or works for someone in Reston, Virginia, is not going to be the same thing. And I think politics these days is so black and white that people just tend to ignore the fact that there's a lot of nuance and that there should be differences in how people are treated, not because of their skin color or their origin or their religion, but in terms of their need. And, you know, we can't all be treated the same because we don't all have the same needs. So a homeless person, in my opinion, should get a house. I think that we should house homeless people because they need it. And I don't know, I'm also very tired and I don't want to sound like I'm being completely weird, but if a person needs food, then they should get food. If someone else doesn't need food, then they don't necessarily need free food. You know what I mean? It's not to say that those people don't deserve free food, it's that there's no need for you because you have enough to eat. So that's what I mean, kind of. Washington's a really interesting city. Uh, it has a lot of history. The museums are fantastic. The Smithsonian Institution is like one of my favorite places to go in DC. All the different Air and Space, American history, all that stuff, and lots of actually really great food and restaurants too, which people don't really think about, but they do have it. And it's a great place to visit. The Cherry Blossom Festival is really pretty, but it's really crowded then. I would say avoid coming in the summer because the summer is really, really hot and really bombing because it's a swamp. Um, I've never been to Houston. I have a friend who lives there, and she and I, we used to be very, very close, and I miss her a lot, but we don't see each other too often these days. But anyway, I didn't mean to go on this huge political rant thing, but blah. I hope they haven't made any new crops recently because I calculated based on the last time I played, which was a couple of months ago. I feel like nowadays every time you blink they have a new insane expansion or update, which is, I will say, is very cool because they include so much stuff in the main game versus a lot of other groups that have a tendency to make everything DLC. And, I get it. I don't mean to hate on anyone who wants to make a living off of video games. That's cool. I'm just saying it's nice that Mojang releases a lot of its features, not as DLC, but as updates. I don't even know where I was going with that. Let's see. So we need seeds, melon seeds, pumpkin, beetroot, and then we're gonna grab raw food. Mushrooms? No. Uh, Crops. Potato. And carrot. Yes, I've heard very good things about. I mean, what more can you say except Houston, we have a problem. I think that says it all. Ah. if you ever come out here, though, and if you are interested in like space and aircraft and things like that, in addition to the Air and Space Museum, there's sort of an extension to that. It's the Udvar Hazy Center. It's out near Dulles Airport, but it is bonkers. It has a full-size space shuttle inside the building, in addition to a bunch of like other stuff. It's really cool. I think, wait, so I'm going to do beetroot and stuff up here. So I guess I'll just do another row of wheat once I get there. I hope those were potatoes. If not, it's not a big deal, but... Five, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. No. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2. Nope. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is important in case they have a siege and they need to survive. I'm sure it's like in San Francisco. In San Francisco, if you call it Frisco, people look at you funny, and it's for that same reason, because everyone in San Francisco knows that that's not what people actually call it there. So it's immediately this sort of like, we can tell you're not from here if you say that. We're going to have a little bit of farming stuff, but then the rest of this is going to be all... Actually, do we need full-on, like... This is just taking up way too much space on our fortress. You know what? No. We're cool. Ugh. Do. Again, we're going to extend this foundation down to the solid rock. Oh boy. And this is probably weird because I like to overthink things, but as I go through a lot of these builds, I like to imagine sort of backstory for, specifically for how the fortress will like eventually fall or something like that. Oh crap, I forgot. Travel, yeah, I've been very fortunate in my life. My parents work for the Foreign Service, so I was able to travel a lot from a very young age, and I've lived in a lot of different places. Um, and I'm super grateful that I was able to see different parts of the world, and that I am able to now speak different languages because of it. Um, but travel is fabulous. What's one of the places that like what's your top place to visit someday, Bella? Okay, there we go. Gravel, 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 gravel. Because I guess part of the backstory here is that, this fortress was built up not necessarily over time, but as a way to kind of mark their presence in this area, to have a stronghold that they could defend the territory from marauders or other people with a claim. Because I believe even in the time of Magna Graeca, when the Greeks were sort of conquering a lot of the Mediterranean, I think there were Etruscans, the ancestors of the Romans, living in these areas. So any Greek person worth their salt who wanted to keep these territories knew that they needed to find a way to defend them. Of course, that did not go well for the Greeks in the end, because they ended up losing all of their territories in Italy back to the Romans, but who's counting, Spain is fabulous. The food is fantastic. Rome also. If you really are into visiting Italy in general, I definitely recommend Naples. It's in the south. The people are super duper friendly. The people in Italy up north are a little bit friendly too. But I will definitely say that the southerners that I've interacted with are some of the friendliest people I've ever met. Most, hospitable, all this different stuff. And what's nice about it is that it's super cheap and affordable compared to a lot of other parts. Obviously not like Amalfi. Amalfi is really expensive, but if you go to Naples, a lot of the prices that you're going to get there are going to be a lot more affordable than something in Rome or Milan or Florence. Florence is hecka expensive. But Rome is beautiful. It has so many layers, which is one of the reasons that I wanted to kind of explore this idea of like Minecraft archaeology and sort of build from the ground up. Is to sort of kind of have something that has multiple layers and identities, because so much of Rome and Italy and Europe in general has that, because you have the medieval part of the city, and you have the Baroque part of the city, and you have then underground, a lot of times you have the Roman parts of the city, which are really cool to look at and find and discover, explore. And Spain has a lot of that too, even the Roman parts of it. Um, I mean, you got to go to Granada and see the mosque. And wait, is Granada where? I think it is. the Alhambra. The Alhambra is one of the most spectacular pieces of architecture that I have ever seen, and I cannot recommend it enough. It's definitely, I think it's one of the wonders of the world. I don't remember exactly, but if it's not, it should be. It's gorgeous, beautiful, and well worth the visit. Actually, I'm probably going to build a wall here at some point, but oh well. And then I think we can do... because the trees here are oak trees, so we could build them a little shelter area. Obama wouldn't do this to me. Obamacare. Just gotta grab something real quick. Sorry, my Twitch is acting up, so I'm probably not going to be able to tech chat for the next couple of minutes, so I do apologize, Bella, for that. But I am going to be logging off here pretty soon. Maybe it's past midnight here. But I wanted to finish up. So these are going to be little enclosures for animals. And then we're going to have, you know, the regular stuff, barracks, armory, all that good stuff. So I'm just going to probably finish these enclosures real quick, then get to bed. fence. Ah. I kind of wish it kept those like pillar things when you actually, all this talking about ancient stuff really reminds me of this other post that I saw on Tumblr earlier today, which is one that I had seen years and years ago, but had kind of forgotten about, which talked about how people tend to think that, oh, archaeology is very new, which is true in the sense that the actual study, scientific study of fossils and ancient animals is relatively new. However, people apparently used to find fossils, have been finding fossils for millennia. And so it's actually believed, it's theorized at some point that part of the origin of half slabs, here we go. Part of the origin of a lot of myths, such as dragons, cyclopses, and even like gods and stuff, actually comes from unearthing or like seeing and being exposed to fossils or skulls or things like that. Because apparently, if you look at a baby elephant skull or certain different types of elephant skulls, even adult ones, they actually look like they have this big sort of hole for some. I don't remember what it's. I think it may be for the trunk or something, in the middle of their head, and they have really tiny eye sockets, and so it kind of looks almost like a humanoid kind of skull with one giant bulbous eye. And so it's just interesting to think about how people saw what were essentially things like dragons and what we know now as dinosaurs, and basically we're like, oh my gosh, that's a dragon, that's insane. Do we not have... There we go. Spawn chicken, cow, pig, sheep, wolf, polar bear. Spawn donkey, spawn mule, spawn zombie horse, pufferfish. Wow, they've added a lot of new. Let's grab some cows, some pigs, some sheep, and a donkey or two for oops. Then we're going to do some sheep and some pigs in this one. tell you what, I'll do the last thing, which is going to be building this fence. Actually, that's not a bad idea, so let's do that. And by that's not a bad idea, what I'm talking about is building a little walkway just to make it easier to collect the crops. We'll put an oak fence gate. And there we go. That's going to be our first section there. So... No, I'm not looking at baby elephant skulls. They just happen to pop up. But do check that out, actually. If you get a chance, look up, like, Cyclops elephant skull. It's pretty interesting to see that, and also the ancient bears used to be, they look very vaguely human, and they look like humans that are like 8 or 9 feet tall. Obviously now we know that they're bears, but, you know, for more primitive people who don't have scientific research and understanding of evolution and stuff like that, they look like giant monsters. Same thing with unicorns. I think someone probably saw a rhinoceros skull and was like, oh, it's a horse, right? Because they don't know how to describe an animal with 4 legs that's not a horse. Anyway, thank you very much for watching, Bella, and everyone else. If you're watching this on YouTube after the fact, please like and subscribe. Let me know if you have any suggestions for this fortress. This is going to be less like a super duper all the time series and more just I'll sort of check in every once in a while with what I'm doing and probably play some more off screen because I don't think y'all want to watch me build foundations all the way to the bedrock all the time. Yeah, so thanks very much for watching and have a great night.